what's going on between Iran and the United States, because yesterday we had some sort of reports from the Iranian media. Later on, we had, you know, Meh News in Iran reported on that, the 14-point plan, and then it was we had the tweet of the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi saying no, that wasn't the case. That's not reflecting the reality of what's going on between Iran and the United States, which was retweeted by Donald Trump, confirming what Araghchi said. And what we know right now in the case of the Strait of Hormuz, last night there were some sort of firing. CENTCOM reported that they shut down 2 or 3 Iranian drones, which were supposed. It seems that the strait is open as usual since day one, and they're trying to do their best. I think it's better to start with the Strait of Hormuz, because CENTCOM last night said the strait is open. The day before, they said the same thing. What is the situation in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, it's open for fish, I'm sure, but for ships, I'm not quite sure. And in fact, you know, how Trump a few days ago said that they had this secret project where they helped ships get out of the Strait of Hormuz. That was all nonsense, and they have not been able to sneak a single ship out of the strait during this period. And if they could, if they were really serious, if it was true, all they'd have to do is just give the names of the ships, because the ships in the strait in the Persian Gulf, they're all known entities. They have names, they have captains, they have crews, they have cargo. They departed from a particular port. They are going to um, another port. It's clear, which ship is where and where they're bound. And so if the Americans have facilitated 2 ships, 3 ships, 10 ships, or 100 ships, or 200 ships, they all have names. They could say, well, yes, so and so ship, which we've helped escape through the Strait of Hormuz, it is now on its way to such and such port in such and such country, and but they won't do that because they know it's fake. And last night, apparently, they again tried to encourage a ship, at least one, to go through, and the Iranians again blocked it. And by the way, every time the Americans shoot down a cheap drone, they spend maybe 30, 40 times as much money as the Iranians uh, through through using those missiles. So nothing has changed. What I can say, though, is that the the statements made by the foreign minister on television last night are pretty accurate. I mean, they're accurate. Someone told me that um, he meant that in his tweet he was referring to the Meh News uh, material. He was speaking in general terms, and it wasn't necessarily to say that Meh News or anyone else was wrong. But if you look at the comments that he made on television himself, even though he said, as we are discussing before the show, he said he's not going to talk about the details, but he gave us some details. Those, as you could um, see, were pretty similar to what Meh News had put out. So, in general, I would say that what happened was that 2 3 weeks ago we were pretty close to a deal, and we've discussed this before, and we discussed what the Iranians would get and what the Americans wanted, and that. So your viewers aren't uh, as well versed as I, so I won't go into that. But then the Americans put in new demands, and the Iranians said, "We're not touching this." And then the Americans started trying to put pressure on Iran. Netanyahu threatened to bomb Dahia. Then he bombed Dahia. We know what happened then. And Iran hit Israel hard. The Israeli regime retaliated, and I heard on from someone. I think I was on um, another show, and the host told me that I don't remember who, but the host told me that the Israelis hit Iran hard. They didn't hit Iran hard at all. But in any case, the fact that they refrained from bombing Dahi again, I think, shows who had the upper hand in the exchange between Iran and Israel. But the Americans then also started attacking Iran at night on numerous occasions, which we all remember. And the Iranians would strike back very hard on each occasion. So then on, I think it was Wednesday, very terrible at these things. I always forget these things. But Wednesday, I'm pretty sure, the Qatari delegation came to Iran, and they informed the Iranians that those extra demands, they were withdrawn. So basically, we went back to where we were 2-3 weeks ago. In other words, the Americans tried to impose something new. The Iranians said no. The Americans applied pressure through the Zionist regime, through their assault on the Strait of Hormuz and on islands and on the Iranian mainland, and they got no results. So, but after the United States withdrew those demands, that was when Trump said he's going to hammer Iran and exit. He seemed drunk and he was talking all sorts of nonsense, and then that night was the last attack, and Iran hit back hard as well, and for the first time they also hit Oman for the first time since the war, since the 39 days of war. This is still the same war, but anyway, so the Iranians hit back hard, but it appears to be pretty clear what happened, and that is that Trump withdrew those demands, but he didn't want to look weak. So he came in and said, I'm going to destroy Iran, so that after the attack, whatever deal potentially comes out, he'll say, I got it from a position of strength, and they are weak. The Iranians were weak. And that, of course, didn't work. The Iranian response was very tough, and but in any case, the content of the deal is pretty clear. It's exact. I mean, if anyone wants to follow the news in Iran, the Pars news agency, the Tasnim news agency, they cover this stuff pretty well. And these two news agencies, Tasnim and Fars, both have English, but I follow the Persian. I follow other news outlets too, but these two are, when it comes to these sort of issues, they're pretty clear. So now we are where we are. It's not clear if there will be a deal, but I would say for the first time that, in my opinion, the chances are better than 50%. Until now, I would never think that way. I think maybe there were times when I was more optimistic for a deal, but I think I'd never believed it would be the chances were this high. And but some things that Trump said, of course, are not true. One is that everything is finished. No, there are still issues to be resolved. And as far as I understand, I actually didn't see Dr. Adokchi's interview. You did, I think, but because I was on live television for Al Mayadeen, and I only had my cell phone in front of me, so as I was on television, I was constantly checking his interview, which it was almost 1 hour. That program was 1 hour, so the whole time I was on TV, I only saw the summary. But there will not be a signing ceremony. This will be done through electronic signatures. It'll be the two sides won't gather, and I think that's the right thing to do. I don't see there any necessity for Iranians to be standing in the same room with these people.
What he said last night is that when in terms of the American attacks on Iran, he said the Trump administration tried to force zero enrichment on Iranians. Then Iran said, no, that's not going to happen. Then they attacked Iran. They
That's
wanted
right.
Iran. Yeah.
Someone told me that on a in a Telegram channel, an English language Telegram channel, that Dr. Arokchi was saying, like he was saying it in a way as if this was our fault. Again, I haven't watched it,
No.
but my friend, I called a friend who watched it, and also a family member who watched it, and they said no, that's not at all what he was implying, and that it's Iran's sovereign right, and to bomb a country because they're not unwilling to give up their sovereign right uh, uh, doesn't make doesn't there's nothing for the country to be blamed about. So no, that whichever Telegram channel said that, it's wrong. What he said is basically that the United States carried out an act of aggression because we were unwilling to forsake our sovereignty, which is, of course, the right thing to do. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the most fiercely independent country on this planet with an extraordinarily resilient people. And I think by now everyone knows that. And like Hezbollah, people should learn more about the resistance and why they're so resilient and resistant. And why is it that, except for Hezbollah, and Ansarullah and Iran and so on, that we're just seeing we see nothing. We see no movement in our region.
Yeah. I think the most important points that he mentioned, one of them was Lebanon, and which we know Lebanon and the acts of resistance was since day one. They were part the first point in the 10-point plan, 14-point plan, and right now is the same. And you mentioned how Iran, you know, issued some sort of ultimatum to Israel not to attack Dahia, which worked after all. After just to mention what has happened between Iran and Lebanon, I think between Iran and Israel is so important because Israel attacked Dahia, then Iran responded to Israel in the northern part of Israel. Then we had Israeli attack on Iran and Iranian retaliation from the north to the south of Israel. Then
That's right.
there was no retaliation after Iranian attack. Two attacks on Israel, one attack on Iran on the part of Israelis. That was the reality. If we assume, I think the second attack of Iran, which we've seen some footages coming out of Israel, they hit some important targets in Israel. That's why they decided not to escalate it. Then you see the United States coming in, which, from what we've seen, from what we've heard from the Iranian foreign minister last night, he said that it was because of, the Trump administration wanted to force this term of zero enrichment on Iran. I think that could be some sort of reality. I don't know that case of Apache helicopter has anything to do with the American attack on Iran. But what I'm somehow sure about, that the Iranian attack, the second Iranian attack on Israel was so hard that the United States decided to respond because Israel was not capable of responding to Iran.
What came out of this is that if there's any one-on-one war between Iran and the Israeli regime, it won't last 12 days like last time. The Israelis will be on their knees pretty quickly. And they know that, the Iranians know that. But also the Americans are not in a position to fight. We saw during these last few nights, every time the Americans struck, Iran was very heavy-handed in its response. And the Americans are running out of time. They are truly running out of time. The crisis is about to hit. And we are very close. And people are, those who are optimistic, those who are pessimistic say it's going to be in June. Those who are optimistic say it's by the end of July. And even if there is an agreement, there will still be a crisis, and it will affect the world for a very, very long time. So Trump needs a deal, and Trump's military is not nearly as capable as he would like us to believe, and Iran has shown that. If Iran downed the helicopter, that again shows weakness on behalf of the United States. But what we do know is that the Iranians never took uh, credit for downing the helicopter, and they always do when they strike American planes or drones or targets anywhere. Uh, so perhaps it was a mechanical failure. Perhaps it was hit by a drone because there are the Iranian drones monitoring the Strait of Hormuz. It's Iranian territorial water after all. So that helicopter may have had an accident with the drone. We don't know. But at the end of the day, Trump did use it as an excuse to show his strength because of his retreat at the negotiating table. But that didn't work either. The Iranian response was very hard hitting. And from my understanding, important U.S. assets were destroyed.
The case of Lebanon, Professor Marandi, what can we learn? Because last night, Iranian foreign minister said, after all, Israel has to withdraw totally from Lebanon. This is the final goal. And I don't know how far can they reach to that conclusion during the talks or in the aftermath of the talk, because last night we had Israel attacking Nabatea in the southern part of Lebanon, and they're attacking, destroying, but the attack is not getting to Beirut so far from what we've
Yeah,
seen.
they're bombing homes. They're bombing cities. They're getting, because on the battlefield they're not doing well. They're not doing well on the battlefield, and because of that, they're getting revenge on people. We've discussed this before. So when you say Nabatea, it's a city. I've been to Nabatea more than once. It's a beautiful city, large population in the context of a country like Lebanon, and what they're doing is just bombing the city and bringing about death and destruction out of anger and rage because of the fact that they're losing. Of course, even if they were winning, they'd do it too because they're just ruthless monsters. But it is because of their anger and rage. But the Iranians have said very clearly there will be no deal if the regime does not withdraw. It doesn't go back to where it was 3 months ago for this period. At the end of the day, it has to leave Lebanon completely, but it has to go before this war began, and that's you know that there are like I think 5 points or where they occupied. They have to withdraw completely, and they will no longer be allowed to bomb Lebanon. And if they don't do that, there's no deal. If the Americans don't release the Iranian assets, there's no deal. If the Americans don't lift the siege, there's no deal. If the Americans don't lift the sanctions on Iranian energy exports, there's no deal. So the Iran and why? What leverage does Iran have? It has its missiles, it has its drones, it has its military capability that we've seen used in the last couple of weeks, and it has, of course, the control over the Strait of Hormuz. And the Americans are in deep trouble.
Strait of Hormuz was mentioned last night. Iranian foreign minister said that the strait, we're not gonna, because the toll system is gonna be against the international law. So we have something else. We have a fee to be charged. I don't know, environmental fee or administrative fee.
Whatever. The
yeah,
fact that whatever they're going to take money. That's the point.
yeah,
You can
it's
call it
gonna
a
be between
toll.
Iran and
You can
Oman.
call it a fee. Yeah, because I mean, since a toll is not in accordance with internet, not acceptable in accordance with international law, they'll take a fee. That's how it works. But also, they'll have control. In other words, Israeli ships won't be getting through. American naval ships won't be getting through. Iranians will prevent that sort of thing. So it will be controlled to make sure that the enemy doesn't militarize the Persian Gulf again, and to make it very costly for it to bring anything to those bases. Because since they won't be able to use their ships, everything will have to be brought in by plane, and that makes the cost much greater and much more problematic. Sustaining it will be much more problematic to sustain it. So they will have control, and they will get their reparations through environmental fees or insurance fees or security fees or a combination of all these fees. Yeah, the world has changed.